I think for me, I will go short July Aug Dated. So it's a good expression because I'm generally, calling more of a contrarian trade. Hi, welcome back to Trading Corner. I'm joined with James, and we're just going to do a little run through of what we've seen for the last 2 weeks in the markets. So yeah, fairly uneventful, I would say.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet on the
Seems
product
like,
side.
yeah, I mean, even if we look at the futures, it seems like, you know, more tail towards the upside, but fairly range bound. Similar for the products, margins are softening a little bit, DFL's pulling up a little bit, but nothing that aggressive happening on the curve, right?
No, I mean, I guess I've been following like the deck Brent a bit, which has been picking up, but yes, it's been pretty uneventful
Yeah,
from the product side.
interesting. I think the main mover, on the crude side at least, has been Dubai. So I know we were talking about it quite a lot last week, this inclusion of Murban and how it's kind of suppressing the Dubai spreads, which is causing Brent-Dubai to rally a little bit. That's kind of corrected a little bit. So I think, given the environment we're in with strong margins, incentivizing crude purchases.
Probably good margins now.
Yeah, sorry,
Starting to
but
get.
2 weeks
Oh
ago,
yeah,
the situation we were in where we had good margins and the DFLs are rallying. The US crude actually doing very well. We'll talk about that in a second. But it was Dubai that looked to be the most suppressed, and it did need to catch up. So that has happened. We've kind of got back down to around flat on the prompt Brent Dubai contract. So it all kind of feels like we're in homeostasis, really, like really balanced markets here. Given where we are in the cycle, we should expect the crude strength. We did see that happen, potentially not as aggressively as last year the market would have potentially liked, but we did see that buying come in, and now it's a question of where we go from here. So yeah, if we do quickly talk about the three curves, so Dated and Dubai, WTI is definitely pulling up all of the crudes. And it's quite interesting because it is the point in time where we would expect the TI Brent boxes to start performing, moving into positive territory, which they definitely have. But the front one has actually performed very well. I think we're seeing, Aug set WTI over $1 on the time spread, which is incredibly strong.
is that all the wildfires or?
So yeah, to be honest, it's not super clear why there's so much strength in these front spreads. But yes, a bit from the Canadian, wildfires, as you said, but it doesn't seem like it's enough to push those time spreads up to $1. So I think there's a little bit more going on there than really the market maybe understands. I think because Cushing is quite a unique landlocked storage area, sometimes those spreads kind of move in a magnitude that you don't really expect.
Yeah.
So it might just be one of those situations, but nonetheless, it's pulling up Brent, it's pulling up Dubai. So I think the strength is definitely feeding from WTI. But the interesting thing is, in the dated window, we're still seeing a lot of TI Midland offers for kind of back end June, now early July loading. So there's still that incentive to move the cargoes over with what appears to be a closed arb. So yeah, where we go from here, I think for dated, I think we've kind of reached the top for now, unless we get a real run up in margins again. I think we can expect the GFLs to start softening. But other than that, as I said, fairly like balanced market. I think the flows are going to be on the sell side from trade houses, etc., looking to hedge, which will drive the prices down a little bit. But I think we are going to be stuck in this range for the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure what you're seeing on products. Anything that might prove me wrong?
Probably quite boring, but from my side, I actually completely agree. So for once, but the like products have been pretty uneventful. Like crude's been picking up, I think, as we expected, and now I can't see any kind of screaming like buys or sells or opportunities. Like I think it's kind of priced out or kind of the pricing has moved to where we might have expected.
Yeah. How about fuel? How's fuel doing after that big rally?
It rallied. It's come off a bit, but it's on a historic basis. It's still very high. So I think we got like positive fuel oil cracks, and I mean the fronts maybe come down to like -3-ish, but I mean that's still extremely high for fuel oil. But the market's still very supported, and I suspect the market's still pretty tight. So I'm not necessarily expecting that to change much. So fuel oil's come off a bit. Distiller it's maybe come off a bit, but it's also kind of jumping around. It's not been a kind of a massive sell. Gasoline's been fairly strong. Naphtha's probably the one that's come off the most.
Yeah.
But in general, the products have kind of they've come off a bit, but I think the margin's been hit more from the DFL side.
Just if we see, going back to kind of mid-May, you look at how the DFLs are kind of one-to-one moving the margin. So it does show that actually all the products are kind of in a state of balance. If one's giving up a little bit, potentially another product is lending back that support. And the correlation between the DFL and margin is fairly strong right now. So let's see. I think we could get potentially a situation where the DFL comes off and maybe the products stay, which might give a little bit more.
Well, I think since margins have come off, so like I mean, and you're now no longer bullish DFL, which I think is interesting as well. So like the incentive to run slightly lower than it was.
I just think given we're arguably the strongest time of the year, all the refineries are back online looking for crude purchases, and the highest that we've been able to get the physical diffs in dated are up to around 78-80 cents. And historically, I mean, given the last few years, obviously there's a lot more bias on how the last few years have priced, but at this time, I would expect actually $1.50 on these diffs, given where the margins were coming out of turnarounds, potentially as well catching a lot of the market short from last month. So yeah, it's fairly underwhelming, and I think if everything is, it has lined up to be its most bullish, and the highest we can get the diffs are 80 cents. It's not suggesting that the market's that strong.
Yeah, and I think that's probably right. I mean, most of the people you talk to, I guess, don't have particularly constructive. If not, they've probably got bearish like crude and product balances this year. So I think that maybe we're seeing that in the price. Like it's simply this year is not as tight as it was last year.
Yeah.
Or the year before.
Exactly. And another one actually that I love to keep an eye out on is the front fly. The front Brent fly really struggled to perform. I mean, in a situation with a kind of bull play and dated or physical purchases happening, you'd expect the front fly to, probably be around 15 up to 20 cents. It's really struggled to pick up. It's, quite happily sitting at around 9-10 cents, whereas the rest of the flies down the curve are at like +20, +22, so really healthy. So yeah, I like to look at that fly as an indication of what the dated market is thinking, to be honest, the physical guys, and it just doesn't look like the appetite's there. So I would say, yeah, the DFLs in the front, they're probably a bit too expensive. Equally, the Brent spreads, I think they need to start coming down. But it's TI. TI is the unknown right now. That's what's dragging up Brent. So I don't want to go too aggressive on selling because I can't explain really why there's so much strength in TI yet. So I'm going to be doing a bit of investigations on that. Also APIs, like these kind of stock levels coming out over the next couple of weeks will be fairly important for those.
And I think it's important, like margins are still, they've come off a bit, but they're still okay.
Yeah.
And we're still coming out of turnaround. So like, I mean, from my side, I think the crude market should be reasonably supported. I think that's in the price though. So I agree with you that, maybe it's a bit toppy here, but I don't see it coming off much yet. But yeah, certainly as people start looking out of summer to like turnarounds kind of and back end of Q3. I agree that's where I think we could definitely see some of those spreads pressured.
Yeah.
Kind of, but yeah, not quite yet.
No, I say so. Okay, well maybe let's just run through a quick trade suggestion for the next 2 weeks. I think for me, I will go short July Aug Dated. So it's a good expression because I'm generally, calling more of a contrarian trade in the top. It's a dated spread because they don't love to get long the Brent spreads here. So yeah, contrarian, essentially small positioning just because, as mentioned, I need to figure out what's going on with WTI. But I do expect the sell side flows to come into July in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. From my side, I am taking profit on half of the back end, so Deck 26 gasoline trade. So got in at around 3 and it's around like plus 380 today. So it's made 80 cents, which is not a huge amount, but basically just halving the position and then keeping the rest and going to run it with a trailing stop. So personally, I quite like trading it like that. If you've had a trade that's gone well, take a chunk off and then even if it moves back against you, you still made some money. So
yeah, and allow for some potential more upside, right?
there is still potentially upside. Also, it kind of ties into the Brent view we're discussing as well. Like the big reason why that back end gasoline crack did well was that Brent spreads moved up.
Yeah.
So that actually inflates the cracks at the back. And I think now it sounds like we're kind of not as bullish Brent. So if Brent spreads do come back off, that's going to put pressure on the back end gasoline crack. So
Yeah.
another reason, moving to kind of half size on that.
Okay, perfect. We'll catch up in a couple of weeks to see where we are. Thank you.